Next tonight in Wisconsin, bail reform often begins with tragedy. A murder in 1979 kickstarted a campaign to change Wisconsin's law. It was billed as a way to keep dangerous people behind bars without the option to get out. But 40 years later, it hasn't worked. Now, once again, tragedy at Waukesha's Christmas parade is sparking another push for change. But this latest effort doesn't fix what the 1981 change tried and failed to accomplish. Investigative reporter Naomi Coles has the story.
The 23-year-old man reportedly admitted to police he had stabbed Joanne Esser.
Heartbreak in 1979. A 22-year-old girl traveling north to her parents' cabin, raped and killed by a man free on a $900 cash bail for violent crimes.
Esser's body was found about 6 miles away, along the side of a logging road north of Antigo.
Joanna's parents embarked on an aggressive and successful campaign to change state law. In 1981, an overwhelming majority of voters approved a constitutional change, a clause allowing judges to keep the most dangerous felons behind bars without an option to get out while waiting for trial. Fast forward to 2022.
It has been totally ineffective. There have been zero times that it's actually been used.
Judges would use it if they could, but the problem was how it was written.
It's unworkable.
But now, tragedy has struck again. In its wake, 2 Republican lawmakers are working once again to change Wisconsin's constitution on bail.
Basically bring us back to pre-1981.
But the catch, their change won't fix that clause. Instead, it will allow judges to drive up the amount of cash bail based on how dangerous they think a violent offender is. But they still won't be able to stop them from getting out at all.
Preventative detention. Are there individuals in our system that perhaps just shouldn't be out into our community?
Kelly Thompson leads the state's public defender's office. She sat on a 6-month-long bipartisan legislative study committee 4 years ago, a group put together when the original version of this new amendment was first introduced.
My hope would be before we do something so significant as change the Constitution, that we would take all of that information from that legislative committee. We would take all of the research and data that we've had since then. That was 4 years ago.
The legislature is doing the opposite of what this committee and the experts that were on the committee have recommended and pushed for.
Democrat Evan Goyke sat on that committee.
The wrong type of change to
and was one of several Democrats who voted no on the current constitutional amendment that has cleared both chambers in the first of a 3-step process to change the law.
And I think some of my legislative colleagues kind of gave up on trying to change this complicated pretrial detention system and said, it'll just be easier, faster, if we just rely on cash bail. People know what that is. They've heard of it before. Let's just deal with cash bail.
Here's the thing. That 1981 constitutional change still did completely transform how cash bail and pretrial release are handled in Wisconsin. This part wasn't as big a headline back then. It only allows judges and court commissioners to look at a person's likelihood to come back to court when deciding how high to set bail. Everything else, like their danger to the public, is handled through release conditions. This new amendment would allow judges to factor in that public danger when deciding how much cash bail to set.
Judges will not only have the ability, they'll have the responsibility and the accountability to look at those things. And it can't be blown off. I mean, and where they want to do it, but they can't, they'll now be able to, really do a good, thorough job.
But the real purpose of the 1981 change, to keep someone truly dangerous behind bars without any way to get out, that would remain out of reach, despite that 2018 legislative study that put out a recommendation to fix it. Opponents say this new change instead only increases our reliance on a flawed system.
If you and I are charged with the same crime, and we're giving different, let's say we're both giving $10,000 cash bail, you can post it. I can't, somehow you're less risky than myself because you've posted $10,000 cash bail. We're using someone's means. A poor person isn't more risky because they can't post that cash bail.
It's really hard in today's politics to take something really complex like bail and pretrial detention and create the political will behind it and engage in what is a multi-year effort to change state law.
Just like in 1981, it's tragedy spurring a change of law. Darrell Brooks is accused of killing 6 and hurting dozens more by ramming his SUV through Waukesha's annual Christmas parade. The public would later learn he was free on what Milwaukee District Attorney John Chisholm would later call an inappropriately low bail and launch an internal investigation into how his office recommended that amount. But the fear from the criminal justice system is that, like in 1981, changes will come with unintended consequences.
It doesn't actually make our system work better, more fair, or keep us safer.
I think the consequences to knee-jerk reactions sometimes are worse than what we're trying to solve with them.
Dane County District Attorney Ishmael Azan has advocated and run his office for years in a way that tries to minimize the role of cash bail. He doesn't advocate for a total removal of cash bail as an option.
It's difficult to know how best to do this, and our system that we have right now is imperfect.
But like so many others in the system, he says this coming change doesn't get to the heart of the issue.
We maybe just be giving the system a green light to hold people indefinitely, from the time of arrest through the time of a trial. And I don't think that is what the proposed reform of bail is looking to do.
We're trying to legislate towards these very serious cases, which I understand, but then we should be looking at what the federal system does and has had success in.
It's called preventative detention, and it's what so many in the criminal justice system are calling for. A way to keep the most dangerous people behind bars with no option of getting out. It's a system other states are moving to, what the federal system already uses. It's exactly what the 1981 constitutional amendment tried and failed to accomplish, and the legislative committee recommended fixing 4 years ago. But so far, that piece has been left behind, as the state instead moves to simply expand cash bail.
We should be so careful when we are keeping people in custody based on their wealth or their lack of wealth.
For News 3 Investigates, I'm Naomi Coles.
And like that study 4 years ago, many of the recommendations have fallen by the wayside as the legislature pushes through reform after another tragedy. We have much more on this information on our website, channel3000.com.